This is the heart of San Diego. The history of this area is told by significant San Diegans who have made and are making a difference in our community. The Heart of San Diego is brought to you by San Diego Metropolitan Uptown Examiner and Daily Business Report, and by Roll Construction Company, Spirit of an American Family.
Hello, it's good to see you again. I'm Fred Lewis. This is the Heart of San Diego. A history of our community is told by significant San Diegans, men and women who really have made a difference here and in some cases around the world. And certainly in several areas, the name Gary Bazance is known worldwide. He's achieved amazing success in three fields: the auto industry, golf, and horse racing. He is a former owner of El Rancho Ford in Poway, one of the principal founders of Cobra Golf, and its chairman of the board until its sale in 1996. He and wife Betty own and operate Cobra Farm with its thoroughbred horses, finishing in the money 51% of the time since 1992. Gary and Betty have been honored by the Hall of Champions as community champions for their philanthropy through the Bazance Charitable Foundation, which has placed special emphasis on children's activities, youth, at the Magdalena Ecke Family YMCA, the George Barnes Family Junior Tennis Center and Youth Tennis San Diego, the Idaho Youth Ranch, and Claremont McKenna College. Mr. Bazance has also received numerous honors from horse racing associations and breeders. He's purchased a farm for retired and injured racehorses for the United Pegasus Foundation. There's much more, but now let's meet Gary Bazance. Gary, it started for you in Los Angeles in 1934. What kind of kid were you? What kind of childhood?
Well, it was interesting. My dad came from Ohio. The family was from Ohio. My mother was from Massachusetts, and they came out in the Depression period, as people have read about. My dad took an ad off a newspaper to work in Figueroa Street in Los Angeles for $7 a week, and we lived in Culver City, and I just had a normal kid's childhood. My dad then worked for Packard Motor Company, and at a very young age became a Packard dealer, and we moved out to San Gabriel, and so I grew up in the San Gabriel, San Marino area after that.
What did you want to be when you grew up? When you were, let's say, 10, 12, 15 years old?
I never really had a great ambition about what I wanted to do, other than I knew I was probably going to be in the automobile business. And I was a smaller kid than most of the other kids, but I was always the quarterback on the football team or the coach or whatever. I mean, I was the leader, and so I just naturally thought whatever I do, I'd be okay.
Well, when you grew, you eventually played football and basketball, as well as being an exceptional golfer. We'll get to that in a minute. Heroes growing up. What kind of people did you look up to aside from your father?
Baseball players. My dad used to take me to Wrigley Field, and I saw Satchel Paige and Joe DiMaggio and Bob Feller, and
we're talking about old Wrigley Field in Los Angeles.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. That was a place my dad and I would go, and I loved sports. I just kind of was a kid that always enjoyed sports. High
school years, what were you doing?
Well, I played ball at, we went to South Pasadena High School, and it was interesting. In those years, I worked as a gardener at the Huntington School in San Marino because I had an ambition to run the recreation department in the summer, be the youth director, and run the basketball pavilion. And the principal, El Mernier, I can still remember, he says, you got to do a good job as a gardener and hoe the weeds and everything. If you do a good job, I'll let you run the gym. So when I graduated from high school, I went to college, and my summer job for 4 years was to run the gymnasium at the Huntington School. And we had great athletes come through there, some of the great tennis players in the world, basketball players, and I used to just open the gym in the morning and close it at night every day.
Gym rat.
Gym rat, you got it.
And eventually, of course, you're helping a lot of gym rats in the North County at the Magdalena Ecke Center, and you and your wife donated over $2 million to build a beautiful gymnasium up there. Again, part of the later story. We're still talking about you now going to Claremont College, now Claremont McKenna. And in 1956, your graduating year, you were named the school's finest athlete of the year.
Right.
Golf captain.
Right.
Tailback in football, all-conference guard in basketball.
Right.
So the gym rat really kept working out and kept playing sport. Was sports easy for you, or did you really have to work harder than, say, the average guy?
No, sports was easy for me. I think it's eye and hand coordination. I just was always good with a racket or a ball or whatever. Never a big, strong kid, but very quick and agile and coordinated and could play. And so sports was easy for me. I just loved, threw me a ball, I could play with it.
Horses and golf came into your life fairly early. You used to go with Daddy to Santa Anita. Tell us about that.
Well, my dad was very busy at that time. He was in the automobile business as a Packard dealer, and the only day we had was Saturday afternoons. And his idea of spending time with me was to take me to Santa Anita, and he could play the races, and I'd stand up on a chair and watch the horses. And I was 11, 12, 13, 14 years old at that time, and really got enamored with the racehorse. It was a great athlete. I was just awed by the power and grace of the thoroughbred horse. So I was always thrilled with horses.
What about golf? When did you start playing golf?
Well, I played golf pretty early in high school when I was playing sports in school, and started out at probably about 14 or 15 years of age, and had a pretty good career as a golfer. I actually thought at one time that I might like to play professionally, but I knew it wasn't in the cards because I knew I had to work at that time when I got out of school. I had to help my dad.
1956, you get out of school and you go to work for your father at the Ford dealership in the, I believe, the Glendora area. Mm-hmm. And pretty soon you're sales manager, and you had a very successful career in Los Angeles in the car business.
Yep. Yeah, we had a wonderful there. We built a beautiful big agency in Glendora, and I was very honored. We were one of the top dealerships in California, and I had some great meetings with Lee Iacocca and Henry Ford, and I had an opportunity to be with some of the great Ford dealers, and I was really proud of my dad. My dad was a great dealer, and everybody loved him, and we had a good company. I mean, we were good.
You go out on your own, move to Poway, and tell us why you did. I think this is an early rendering of Rancho Poway Ford.
Well, it was really interesting why we moved down here. The smog area where we were in Glendora was pretty extreme, and I was a president of Glendora Country Club at the time, and I'd won the club championship there. And there were days there when we'd go out and play golf, and after 3 or 4 holes, you'd get a pain in your chest, and you just felt you couldn't play anymore. So I said, there's got to be a wonderful place to live, and someone told me about San Diego, and Jim Brown, who's the Cadillac dealer here in town, a great friend of mine, introduced me to Rancho Santa Fe, and I said, I've got to have a business down here. So I ended up buying the Ford dealership in Poway, and for a couple of years, I had the 2 dealerships, one in Glendora and one in Poway, and I drove back and forth. But we moved to Rancho Santa Fe in about 69 or 70.
Tell us about this picture.
Well, that's a picture of me at the Rancho Riding Club. When I first got to Rancho Santa Fe, I was in with a group of fellas that put together Rancho Santa Fe Youth, which was a building of a gymnasium in Rancho Santa Fe and donating it to the school, but we had to pay for it. And one of the ways to pay for it was a fundraising idea of mine, which was to run a horse show. And so that picture was taken at the Rancho Riding Club when I was chairman of the Rancho Riding Club Horse Show, which was a great horse show for 3 years.
We're talking about 1969, 1970. Right. What was San Diego like at that time?
Well, San Diego was, interestingly, I still tell people today when I walk into town in Rancho Santa Fe, I look at it from those years and it looks just the same to me. Nothing's changed. It is absolutely...
Which you feel very good about, I'm sure.
I love that. It's traditional, it's wonderful, and they've done a great job there to protect the community. And San Diego itself, like Poway, when I bought the dealership in Poway, there wasn't anything over there. Rancho Bernardo hadn't started yet. There was nothing. That today I go back there to the volleyball club with my daughters now, and I see the growth and development, and it's phenomenal of how San Diego's developed in those years.
Have we been doing it right?
Well, that's one of my real concerns about San Diego. I think it's such a wonderful place to live, and I travel all over the world, and I can't wait to come back. But I worry about the traffic conditions. I worry about, you know, the growth and whether it's in excess of what our arteries and our freeways allow us for pleasure and transportation. I think those have to go hand in hand.
Let's take a look at some historic pictures. There's some interesting people here. Gary is the guy in the middle with the visor on, of course. And going from left to right, who do we have looking at these pictures, Gary?
Well, these are great guys. John Schroeder's the first one on the left, and he's the gentleman that got me involved in Cobra Golf. Chuck Courtney, and another one of my great golf professionals, who's the pro at Rancho Santa Fe. Myself.
That's you.
A gentleman named Tucker, can't remember his last name, from La Jolla, but I played a lot of golf with him. And of course, the gentleman next to him is Gene Littler, who was probably the greatest, or one of the greatest players, like Billy Casper in San Diego. And Bob Irving, who was the club professional at La Jolla for years and played the senior tour after that. That's an old picture of some great golfers.
I'm going to take you to Palm Springs now, and a very noted man. We're going to have to take a real good close-up of this one, but I know this is a treasured picture of you winning the golf championship. And do you recognize Bing Crosby there, folks? There he is.
I was very proud of that picture. I was a member at El Dorado, and I was the club champion there for 5 years. And the first year I won it, I had replaced, Bing Crosby had won it the year before, and he was there that day and gave me my trophy, and I was always a treasure.
Golf is a big part of your life. This is 1967.
Yes, I was a club champion at Glendora Country Club at that time, and we had a tournament called the Pride of the Foothills, which I put together, and those were three of my fellows, Bob Antonopoulos, Art Butler, and Frank Stubbs. And we played against the La Jolla team at that time, and John Schroeder was one of the members of the La Jolla team, and it was a great tournament.
Gary, of course, was on the right, and when you mentioned the name Schroeder, his father, of course, was the great tennis player.
Correct.
And what a wonderful family they indeed are.
John is one of my great friends.
Car business is good in Poway. The community is expanding and growing, and you go into golf in the late 70s, and tell us how this happened. You mentioned John Schroeder's name, but did John come to you and say there was this little company we ought to do something with, or how did it work?
Yes, it's a great story, and John has been my close friend, and without John I would not have been there. But I had had 25 years in the car business, and we had done well at it, and I was a bit bored with that occupation, and John came to me one day and told me about another great friend of mine named Tom Crow, who had come here from Australia to start Cobra Golf, and asked me if I would have lunch with him because the company was a little troubled at the time and maybe I could help him as a good businessman. I said, John, if he's a friend of yours, he's a friend of mine, let's have lunch. And that started the association, and I bought the company and cleared up its liquidity problems, and for a couple of years I ran the company without any pay myself while I was running the car agency, because I didn't know that much about manufacturing or production, but I loved the free enterprise concept of being in charge of your own destiny. And after a couple of years, I sold the car dealerships and devoted full time to that, and we built a wonderful company there.
There's so many stories about some of the great golfers, the Hale Irwins, of course, and Greg Norman.
Right.
What did Greg Norman mean to Cobra Golf?
Greg Norman meant a lot to Cobra Golf at the time. We had built Cobra to about a $30 million company, primarily with women's clubs and primarily with senior clubs.
Okay, we're talking about now late 80s, early 90s.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would say we bought the company in like 78, and I would say in the mid-80s, 87, 88, 89, somewhere there, we needed a marquee player to carry our clubs and play for us, because up to then, John had been our only tour player. And we were fortunate to get Greg, and Greg came with us, and I was proud of him at the time because he put some of his own money into our company, and that showed me a lot of confidence in Cobra at the time. It ended up being very successful for him later on, and one of the great stories at a dinner party one night, he told my wife, he said, I used your husband pretty good in that company. And my wife looked at him and she said, that's just what he says about you.
So everybody's even.
Everybody's even.
This is the Gary Bazant story here on the Heart of San Diego, and it's a fascinating story of auto dealerships, of Cobra Golf, of thoroughbred racing, which we haven't approached too closely yet. And I think you'll be interested in the second half of this program. As we tell you, we're brought to you by San Diego Metropolitan Uptown Examiner, Daily Business Report, our finest business publications in San Diego County, and the largest, and Roll Construction. Spirit of an American Family for over 80 years, and you see their signs all over San Diego County. A hint of stuff to come. This is a picture with Chris McCarran and Gary Bazant, and Chris, of course, has his back to you. He's the jockey, and horse racing has meant so much to you and to where your life is going, Gary.
Yes, it has.
But we're going to take you into, of course, Cobra Golf. The 90s were very, very good to you. The technology, were you on top of the technology? Was that one of the reasons why you did so well?
Well, I wasn't on top of the technology. My partner, Tom Crow, was involved in the technology. He was the designer and was extremely good. I think my forte was motivation and leadership and developing the cultural feelings of the company and the employees. We had a wonderful group of people. We had a family-type operation for a corporation, and we had momentum and enthusiasm amongst our people in the field and in the plant that was just incredible. And that, along with Tom's technology, put us right at the top of the game.
When I said technology, I meant you and the company. And what is the difference with the shafts and the heads in golf today as compared to 25 years ago?
Well, there's massive changes in the materials that are used in the clubs. You know, we go from the wooden shafts to steel shafts to graphite shafts. We go from wooden heads to metal heads to now titanium heads. Grips have stayed pretty much the same, but it's a technological advance that has really caused the clubs to perform better and easier for the player and make the game more enjoyable.
How many yards has a technically advanced club such as a Cobra club given the average club player?
Oh, it could easily be up to 15 to 25 yards with the irons and anywhere from 50 to 80 yards in the drivers.
Which is amazing.
That's amazing, yes. And some of the fellas hit it so far today, it's scary.
What has Tiger Woods meant to the game?
Oh, Tiger Woods has been sensational for the game of golf. He's been so inspirational for young people. In other words, he started a great wave of enthusiasm for the game of golf, and all other players are prospering because of his excellence. But I think the most exciting thing about it is when people say, who's going to beat him? It probably isn't anybody out there right now that's at his level today. It's the 14, 15, 16-year-olds in this country that are now playing and hitting balls. And one of them will end up being another Tiger Woods.
Gary Bazance, you and your partners, of course, sold Cobra Golf for $720 million in 1996. And that gave you more time to follow up your other hobby, which has become a very big business, and that's thoroughbred racing. Let's go back a few years. Tell us how you got into thoroughbred racing. There's a great story about the mare who's the mama of Cobra King.
Well, the story goes back to those days when my dad took me to the racetrack when I was very young. And when I graduated from college, I graduated with about $400 is what I had in savings. And the first thing I did was buy a horse for $400. And that was all the money I had. And I gave that horse to a fellow that trained named Mel Studi at the racetrack. And the first time the horse ran, it won. And I was hooked, without a question, for horses. So all my years in the car business and all my years in the golf business was a passion to make some money and be successful so that someday I could venture into the thoroughbred business and enjoy what I really always wanted to do.
And you're doing it, and as you said to me, it's the American dream come true for you.
Absolutely.
Your favorite horses. I know about Old Trieste, and I know of Cobra King. Tell us about your favorite horses and what they accomplished.
Well, there were three horses that were famous in my life. Savigno was probably the first one. It was a horse I bought in France that won $1.5 million and was trained by a great friend of mine named Walter Greenman, who just passed away recently, unfortunately. And we had a great career with that. Cobra King was my wife's horse, and she picked that horse out. Bought the mare, we bred the stallion, and produced Cobra King, and he was a terrific horse and was favored for the Florida Derby, and he now stands as a stallion in Kentucky and is doing very well. And then Old Trieste came along, and he was a phenomenal horse, and I named him after the restaurant here in San Diego, named Old Trieste because we used to love to go to dinner there. And he was a phenomenal horse. He won 5 graded stakes in America, top horses by 28.5 lengths. Was an enormously powerful animal that had feet problems, or he would have been one of the great champions of all time. He stands in Kentucky now also as a stallion.
Your ideas about improving the breed of horses, the thoroughbreds, and also retiring horses, the Pegasus Foundation, and things that you have donated money to.
Well, the Pegasus Foundation was something I was very proud of. I named that after my father. Actually, that particular ranch is called the Harry A. Bazance Rehabilitation Facility. I named that for my dad. But horses have always been sort of used in racing, and then, I don't want to say discarded, but nobody cared that much about them after their racing careers were over. We've now developed sort of a program through Pegasus, and now it's sweeping the country, that we have these rehabilitation centers where retired thoroughbreds can go and be retrained, and we can send them out for adoption and find homes for them, for hunter jumpers, for trail horses, etc., and give them a second life. And that's pretty exciting to see those horses get a second chance.
You've been very much against drugs for humans, I know, but also drugs for horses. And you felt, I believe at one time, that perhaps the use of some drugs by some unethical trainers was giving the entire industry a bad name.
Well, the integrity of racing is probably the most important part for thoroughbred racing. Thoroughbred racing, to be a successful venture, has to have very, very high integrity. And anytime there's a chance for dishonesty or et cetera, it's troublesome for the sport. The medication of horses is required when horses are sick, but I'm an owner who believes strongly that less is better than more, and that horses should run free of medication to speak of, and their careers will be longer, and it'll be better for the breed. And I don't stand alone in that theory. It's controversial in America today, but there's more and more people beginning to think as I do.
Cobra Farm came into your life. It had a different name and a very storied horse farm in Kentucky where Seattle Slew was bred and foaled. And you're there now. How many days out of the year do you spend in Kentucky at Cobra Farm?
About 6 or 8 weeks. In fact, this Friday I'm going back for about 8 or 10 days, and I have a wonderful feeling every time I go there. It's a story I tell. I drive up to the front of the farm, and the gates open, and I always stop the car about halfway up the drive, and I say, "Who's the lucky guy that owns this place?" I just can't believe it.
And you know, knowing you, you're not bragging, you're just thankful.
I'm just thankful. Just thankful that it can be this beautiful. And the horses are all out in the fields, and the paddocks are beautiful, and it's about 250 acres, and we have about 100 horses there. And the breeding and the raising of horses are very exciting. You know, the breed, pick the stallions, raise the foals, see them develop and grow, and then get to training, and finally get to the racetrack and run is very exciting.
This is a picture of the great stallion, Old Trieste. And you said he could have been one of the very greatest, if not for some feet problems. And you're obviously very proud of this horse. And I want to show another picture in just a moment of you and your wife, Betty, because of the fact that you have done so much in this community at the YMCA in the North County, the Magdalena Ecke YMCA, Youth Tennis San Diego, your Idaho Ranch for troubled young people. Tell us about giving back and your interest in charity.
Well, the George Barnes Center is one of the things that Betty's most interested in because she's an avid tennis player. But
she's on the board of
and she's on the board and stuff. But she feels very much like I do about this area. We've been really lucky, and life has been good to us, and we prospered as a result of it. And the fun part for us today is to give back to the community and put some things back in it. Oftentimes, when we do things, people say to us, "Thank you so much for giving," and I say, "You don't really understand. I'm the receiver." And they say, "What do you mean you're the receiver?" And I said, "Just what I said. I'm giving something, but I'm actually receiving a lot."
Looking at Churchill Downs here in another picture, since we've been talking about the horses. There you are in the middle. And who are the two gentlemen with you?
They're a couple of my partners, Don Sherman and Nick LaRosa, and they're pals of mine that have a little interest in horses with me. And that's standing at Churchill Downs before the Derby, before the Kentucky Derby, when Old Trieste ran. And that was exciting. Old Trieste worked the week before the Derby and tied the track record in a workout. It was the most exciting thing I'd ever seen in racing.
How disappointing the finish must have been.
It was, because he just wasn't up to go in 1.25 miles. He led for the first mile, and he just got tired the last part of it, and the work probably took a little bit too much out of him.
What was San Diego in 1969? We talked about that briefly. What are we today? And what kind of community should we be in the future, in your opinion? You have homes in Del Mar, Rancho Santa Fe, and you still spend most of your time here, despite your interest all over the world.
Well, we're blessed with fabulous weather. It's one of the most wonderful cities. I love the recreation aspects. I think where we live now in Del Mar, it's exciting to see the people running and bicycling and surfing and all the things going on that make San Diego a special place nearly all year round. I think we're blessed with that, and I think the protection of that is just the most important thing. I think we really have to just really manage and think about how large we let San Diego get.
Who is Gary Bezants?
Who is Gary Bezants? I'm the American dream. I'm just a hard-working guy that was successful.
What haven't you done that you'd still like to do with your life?
Well, there are a few projects that I really like to do. I'd love to see. I'd love to be able to make a contribution in thoroughbred racing to see thoroughbred racing attain a major league status, be able to compete with NASCAR and NBA and major sports, because I think it's a great game. I love the horses, I love the people, and I want it to be really good. I'm also doing something I'm excited about at my college, where I graduated in '56, when I graduated as the first all-conference basketball player. And I went back there recently, and they have an old dilapidated gymnasium and facility there, and I made a large donation to them already, and I'm going to head a fundraising campaign to build a new Gary Bezants Athletic Pavilion at Claremont McKenna College. And I'll be very proud of that.
Your favorite spots in San Diego County? A couple of the places that you like to sit and look like you do in Kentucky when you go up that driveway of Cobra Farm and say, who's the guy who owns this place?
Well, the beach at Del Mar is pretty special. We have a house on the beach there, and I walk that beach at nights and take our dogs for a walk, and I really like that. The Torrey Pines Park, is a lovely place, and there's great beauty there. But we have many areas in San Diego that are pretty special.
Gary Bezants, what turns you on and what turns you off?
I think enthusiasm turns me on. I love to be around people that are enthusiastic, love what they're doing, are just passionate, and I feel if they do that, they're going to be successful. I always say enthusiasm makes a difference.
What do you deeply believe in?
I deeply believe that that we are here to contribute. That really, to be a good person, you should contribute. In other words, the world should be a better place because you're here.
Gary, think about your life and tell me about some of the most impressive people you have ever met, and maybe a group of people that you know here who have made a difference in our community.
Well, I've been fortunate here in San Diego to, be involved with most of the people that have been involved in politics and major league sports. And I mentioned earlier today when I was chatting with you that when I first came here, I bought the property that I built my Ford dealership from John Mabee, and John Mabee's been a great sportsman in San Diego and great in the horse racing industry, and so I was fortunate to know him.
I know you're friends with one of our sponsors, Steve Rolls.
Steve Rolls has been a great pal of mine. Dick Enberg from NBC was my next door neighbor, and some of my great thrills were going to the NCAA basketball tournaments with him and the conferences and being able to sit on the bench with Al McGuire and when he was doing the play-by-play. I'm impressed with him a lot. And Charlie Jones, who I watched last night, was another great friend of mine. And the golfers in the community. I had great affiliations with many of the great golf professionals that have come from San Diego: Johnny Jacobs, Tommy Jacobs, Chuck Courtney, and it just goes on. And those were great fun times.
Out of this country, where is your favorite place? Do you have a favorite place overseas?
I'm starting to get a lot of enjoyment out of Argentina and Chile. We race some horses down there, and I have some great friends down there, and we look forward.
Do you keep horses there?
Oh yes, we race in Argentina and Chile both, and I bring horses from down there up to America to run. And I also like to run in England. We love to go to Newmarket and to Ascot, and so I have a couple, 3 or 4 horses that are running over there next year.
Gary Bezants, how do you want this community to remember you, your spirit, your family?
I think the biggest thing for me is that we contributed, that people would look and say, that it was good he lived here. He did some good things.
Are you going to get a horse in the Kentucky Derby who's going to win sometime soon?
You bet. You bet. That's a lifetime desire.
His name is Gary Bezants. He's meant a lot to San Diego. I was thrilled to hear his story. My name is Fred Lewis. We're brought to you by San Diego Metropolitan Uptown Examiner and Daily Business Report and Roll Construction. You're watching us here on ITV, and we'll see you soon right here on the heart of San Diego.
Videotapes of this program are available to schools and colleges, and to you, the viewer, by calling San Diego Metropolitan at 619-233-4060. The Heart of San Diego is brought to you by San Diego Metropolitan Uptown Examiner and Daily Business Report, San Diego's largest circulation business publication, and by Roll Construction Company, Spirit of an American Family.